I have to tell my story. I won't shut up about it because this is so impactful on someone's life, that's in chronic pain.
Melanie, how did you find Carnivore?
So I found Carnivore, let's see, I want to say it was 2021. Um, I had had my second baby, and it was during the COVID shutdown. So we were home. We were home watching a lot of TV, and I have no idea how this happened, but we stumbled upon a video. We usually don't watch Joe Rogan, but for some reason my husband had it on. We were watching a lot of YouTube videos, and it was an interview with him and Michaela Peterson. And she was talking about her experience eating the carnivore diet and her autoimmune issues and the juvenile arthritis and things like that she had. And I was experiencing the worst carpal tunnel syndrome at that time. I was almost unable to hold the baby. My entire hand, everything was completely numb. I started going to a physical therapist several times a week. I started going to a chiropractor several times a week, which is very inconvenient when you have a newborn baby. But I was doing that, and they said you're probably going to have hand surgery. So I ended up going to a hand surgeon, and I was literally on the schedule to have carpal tunnel syndrome surgery. And I saw this video, and this video got something going in my head about maybe I should try switching the way I eat, because at the time I was eating anything and everything, standard American diet, nothing but processed foods, takeout, everything you can imagine. Pretty depressed, and with everything that was going on in the world. And I thought, well, heck, if this helped this woman with her, joint and inflammation problems, why, maybe it would work for me. So the intention originally was to help my carpal tunnel syndrome. But the other things that came along with it were unbelievable. Then the number one being interstitial cystitis, completely gone, cured. Something that I had since I can remember. Totally gone. Drug free, nothing. No procedures, completely gone. Yeah.
How was that impacting you? Was that like
Oh,
you were unable to sleep?
the interstitial cystitis. That is a chronic, debilitating, painful disease that impacted my life. I mean, completely. I mean, it impacts everything. Growing up, we had to have the doctors write notes. She's allowed to go to the bathroom anytime she needs to, because I couldn't hold my bladder for more than probably 30 minutes at a time. Couldn't travel, things like that. It's awful. It feels like having a. I always try to tell people that don't understand. It's like having a urinary tract infection all the time. Um, but going back, that was not the intention of going carnivore. It was just a side effect, which I now am pretty vocal about the fact that this needs to be talked about in the interstitial cystitis community, because I know there's so many other people suffering with this and on medications that have the worst side effects, and it still doesn't help. It's only, it can only kind of numb it a little bit, but it never, even doing the conventional treatments, it never fixed anything. It never fixed the root cause. And so I feel like I have to tell my story. I won't shut up about it, because this is so impactful on someone's life, that's in chronic pain, and it affects your relationships. It's just it's such a big thing, and I feel like a lot of people don't even talk about it because it's almost like shameful, or um, a lot of people suffer in silence with this condition. And so I'm trying to be that voice for people, speak up and tell your doctor, like, what you're giving me is not working. What can I do? Well, the other side of that coin is they don't know. And so I feel like I have to share my story. I'm not saying this is going to absolutely work for everyone, but I know that it would at least limit the amount of pain and reduce it. Let me say that, not limit, but reduce what they're going through significantly. And how quickly it happened was the most wild thing. I mean, we're talking like within weeks that it's gone. And then all of a sudden you go, hold on, you know, all of a sudden that's gone. That I didn't, I'm so used to that. It's like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Yeah.
The crazy thing is, you said like people don't really talk about it, right?
Hmm.
And that I think
Hmm.
that's true. Like I had never heard of it
Hmm.
until I started talking to other carnivores, and it's only because I started talking to other carnivores who, in the same position as you, have
Yeah.
fixed it through
Yeah.
diet that I've heard of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And to be able to say like I don't have it anymore is nuts, because I thought that was my body. That's how I am. I was born that way. It was always going to be that way. I just got really unlucky genetically. My mother has it too, and several of my aunts have it. None of them have, you know, none of them have tried my route of the carnivore diet, and so they've chosen to kind of live with what they have. Like I said, it's a really it's a private struggle and battle that some of these people are going through, and I don't know why we suffer in silence over it, because I feel like if people spoke up more, I think it would be looked into more, and then we could get closer to figuring out a better treatment option for people. Um, Going back, when I was growing up, I showed signs of what my parents assumed was urinary tract infections. As far back as, I'm talking 2, 3 years old, like after being able to speak, I guess, and explain that I was in pain. And so instead of going to a pediatrician, my parents would sometimes take me to like an urgent care, just like not my actual doctor, but just whoever was on duty. Well, they would put me on an antibiotic without having any sort of evidence that it was a bacterial issue. They would just say, "Oh yeah, we'll just put her on that and it'll be okay." And this would happen every few months. So I was on antibiotics too many times. And no one noticed the pattern that I was having these urinary tract infections constantly. I was having the burning and the frequency and the urgency so much that I couldn't stay in a classroom longer than 20 to 30 minutes without having to go to the bathroom, or I couldn't go on a road trip, things like that. I was not fun to be on a road trip with. And of course, I mean, I would cry. I would just cry, and nobody knew what to do. And it wasn't until I was, let's see, in my 20s, I saw my gynecologist, and they thought, oh, she's got they said I had dysmenorrhea, I possibly have endometriosis, all these like pelvic things. No one ever correlated that, you know, the bladder issue was actually what was going on. Until one day I was reading a magazine and it said something like, do you suffer with, bladder pain and frequency and urgency? It could be interstitial cystitis. I was like, what in the world is that? And this is before you just Googled everything. This is way before that. So I got a hold of my gynecologist and I said, I think I have this. And she said, and this is after seeing me for years, she said, huh, yeah, you probably do. And I was like, okay, so I've been having this the whole time and I haven't gotten any sort of help for it. Anyway, so that in and of itself, figuring out like, oh, I think I might have this disease. I can put a name to it, whatever. That only kind of unlocked the door to other painful conventional treatments. So, of course, I immediately get an appointment with a urologist, a specialist. They immediately want to do every kind of test possible. One of those tests is called what was it called? Something hydrodistension. It's like where they literally put you to sleep. They fill the bladder with water. Like, then it basically bursts apart all the scar tissue in the bladder. And then when you wake up, you urinate out the scar tissue because my bladder was completely like this size when it should have been able to expand from the scar tissue. So it was just loaded. That was after doing a cystoscopy, which is where they do a camera. And they said you have what is called Hunner's ulcers, which looks like broken blood vessels through the whole bladder. So they said, no wonder you're in a lot of pain. Yeah, that might be it. Long story short, I'm back home recovering. I'm in terrible pain. I'm prescribed 6 prescriptions. And now looking back, it's terrifying to think of all the stuff I took. But one of the medications alone was like $600 a month. And this was a long time ago. So that was that was a lot of money for us. And, that in and of itself is terrifying to think that we spent that much money on something that didn't even help. And in fact, made other issues worse, affected my eyesight, actually. And so the drug that I was on was called Elmeron, which is not even available anymore because of class action lawsuits against it. It's mind-blowing. But that was when I was like 22 years old, that all these procedures, figuring out that this is what you have, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to, 2021, and I'm, 36, and discover the carnivore diet and completely eradicate every ounce of pain. And I truly believe eating the way I do now not only reduced the inflammation in my body, my bladder, but it rebuilt that lining. My lining in my bladder was destroyed. It was gone. And now it's back. And to think like it literally regenerated itself, if that's what I think happened. I don't know the scientific mechanism of how this actually works. But I can tell you, if I slip up and eat something that I should not, my bladder will tell me immediately. And so that is like my, this way of eating is something that not only am I committed to, it helps my body just completely thrive and stay on top of everything and live a normal, functioning life, free from worrying about if there's going to be a bathroom nearby or being laid up on the couch because I'm in pain. The amount of time that was wasted sick is depressing.
And like just not even thinking about the pain, just thinking about the 20 to 30 minutes part of
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
that how
Yeah.
that must have affected your life so much. I mean, and looking after babies as well.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to
Yeah.
look after babies when you've got that urgency all the time
Yeah.
to like, sorry, I know you want to be fed, but
Yeah. Yeah. It's bad. Um, it's something that I actually it just kind of became a part of me, of who I was. Everyone knew that I was the kind of person that just always had to go to the bathroom, like constantly. And that was just kind of like, oh, she must have like a weak bladder or a small bladder or whatever. People would say things like that. Um, but nobody knew that the pain was there with it. It's more than just, oh yeah, I have to go to the bath. Like that wouldn't be an issue to me. It's the debilitating pain that I was experiencing through, just the entire lower region of my body was just, it felt like I used to tell people, I remember crying. I was in elementary school and I went up to a teacher just crying. And I said, it feels like there's knives in me. And she just looked at me like I was insane. And it's like I couldn't even explain what it was. And my parents had no idea. It sucks because we didn't have the resources that we have now where I can just look up, well, like, what does this symptom mean? Or what does this, the way I am with my kids now is very different than how I grew up with, you know, not a lot of information out there. So I feel like I was born at the exact right time to have this technology and to be able to spread this information. This is what I'm meant to do, is to help other people that are having this, because I know there's a bunch.
yeah. Um, so just to on another point, did it actually help with the carpal tunnel as well?
Not only did it help, I was able to call that. So that's the other thing. The hand surgeon appointment, from the time I had the appointment to scheduling the surgery, I was able to cancel it because it was like a 3 month span of time before the surgery was supposed to occur. And I called them and I said, I'm going to cancel because I don't need it anymore. And I got to call the physical therapist and cancel that. And I started to tell the chiropractor I don't need to come in anymore either. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is because, all these amazing things are starting to happen because I started eating nothing but meat and eggs and butter. Like, what? This can't be. And it is. And it is. And I, you know, I, I know the diet sounds crazy. I know that. And it's completely upside down from everything we've ever been taught. But my thing is this, it's like, what do you have to lose in trying it? If you're in chronic pain with something, whether it's carpal tunnel syndrome or interstitial cystitis, why not? What's the worst thing that happens? It doesn't work, and then you go right back to being how you were. And then it's like, but what if it could actually change everything? Um, like I only named two problems and that's it. Like I have so many more problems that this fixed, and I just I can't say enough good things about it. So
Right.
yeah.
What else did change for you then?
Okay, so let's see. Whew. If I go into like the female stuff, it completely regulated my menstrual cycle. I have zero cramping when I do have a period, which is huge because I used to have to take off of work for an entire week. I have no more cystic acne. I have no more chronic, I had ringing in the ears. And so tinnitus or tinnitus, um, chronic sinus infections, that's all gone. Headaches every day. So I was on like ibuprofen or something for migraines every week. I was taking something. Let me think. What else? Let me go. Yeah, the carpal tunnel, the bladder, OCD drastically reduced, practically, yeah, non-existent. Let's see. Energy level through the roof. Like I don't sleep more than 7 to 8 hours. I don't take a nap. I was taking a nap every single day. So like the fatigue was just terrible. Um, what else did it do? Gosh, it. Okay, here's a really big one. I used to wear contact lenses and now I don't because my vision actually improved. So yes, and here's what happened. I went in to have a LASIK consultation to get the laser eye surgery. And I said, my glasses, every time I wear them, it's just, my eyesight must just be getting worse because I can't see anything. So they look at my prescription and they do the exam and they bring me into a room and they said, well, here's the thing. You don't need LASIK. In fact, your eyesight isn't bad at all. Your glasses aren't the correct prescription. You don't even need glasses. And I said, what? Oh my, I was like, what? And they said, yeah, just come back in about 20 years when when your vision starts to get cloudy or whatever. Just come back later when you're old. And I was like, holy cow. They just told me I don't need that and turned me away. So my vision is better. I don't wear glasses anymore. I don't wear contacts. I can see at night when I drive. Like it's crazy. And it's,
And
yeah.
just all of these things, like,
Mm-hmm.
put them all together in a story like this, and if you were to tell someone, a family member or a
Mm-hmm.
friend, would they just look at you like, "You're crazy. How can this be
Mm-hmm.
possible?"
Yes, yes. And actually, the response that I get is, but what about your cholesterol level? And I even get, and this is the most wild part about this diet is people are literally going to think you are mad, like you're nuts. My own dad says to me that this diet will kill me. So that's the kind of response that I get from my family. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
wild.
I've had people tell me that, and I think, well, at least
Feel
I'm gonna
great.
go feeling good.
Yeah. The other thing that happened that was pretty significant is I lost 70 pounds. Yeah. So that happened. Yeah. Yeah. I used to be a lot bigger. And,
That Yeah,
mhm,
that must make things a whole lot easier to, like, energy-wise and just
yes,
going to work, everything, right?
everything. It changes everything. Um, and like I said, that was not the intention of the carnivore diet for me. It was the thought that maybe this could help my carpal tunnel syndrome and my joints. And I mean, I was having terrible joint pain as well. And, you chalk it up to, well, I'm just getting older. And yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
the wheels are falling off. It's, I'm
yeah,
getting the joint pain. It'll be something else next. Yeah.
right, right. And that's what I feel like we've been kind of misled into believing that's how it's supposed to be. And it's not.
Yeah. So, how do you eat day to day?
So I pretty much eat the exact same things every single day. I start out with, I do grass fed beef, I do scrambled eggs, and pats of butter. Um, and that's pretty much it for at least, till probably about 4 o'clock. And then I will have like a steak or shrimp. Um, that's about it, really. I stick to beef. I don't really do lamb or I don't do pork at all. I found that bacon, especially anything that's been cured, I avoid to for my bladder, and just I feel like I don't feel very well when I eat that way. So I just stick to beef, uh, real butter, and egg yolks. I try to avoid the whites if I can, and just I mean, it's kind of boring, but it's also I don't get tired of it. I like it. It tastes good to me, and I know what I'm gonna eat, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the strangest things is not that it's like almost this magical, like you get better in all these areas thing. It's that every day you can eat the same thing and it tastes just as good every
Yes,
day that you have it.
yes, yes. It is. It's nuts. I would think by now I'd be like, oh, I can't eat that. Yuck. No, I'm like, yes, this tastes so good to me, and I feel so good after I eat it. And I don't struggle with, the ups and downs of being hungry all the time or low energy or food cravings. That's all gone. Um, I used to struggle whew, let's see, probably my whole teenage and adult years, probably my 20s and 30s, constantly trying to lose weight and hating the way I looked and just obsessed with food, completely obsessed. This stops all of that in my brain, which is like, I mean, I'm able to live my life and like do something instead of thinking, when am I going to eat next? What am I going to have?
Well, yeah, on that point,
Mm-hmm.
all those kind of, if you want to call them disabilities, are gone. The interstitial cystitis and all the
Mm-hmm.
things have gone.
Yeah.
And now you're not thinking about food all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You must have a lot more time on your hands now to actually
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
productive, enjoyable things, right?
Yes, I do. I feel like I'm finally getting to live my life. And I turned 40 last year, and I feel like these are the best years so far of my life. I mean, I'm getting to just do what I was meant to do and live the way I was meant to live. And I want to make sure that I can spread this word of, hope and healing. And I just feel called to do that. And so that is why my husband told me, he's like, you need to do a YouTube channel on this. Like, you have to tell people about this. He's kind of carnivore, kind of more keto, I would say, but he's my number one fan, my number one supporter. And he's been, just incredible through this whole thing. Because that's one thing I will say. When you change your lifestyle that drastically, you're going to get some pushback. So to have that support, whether it's your spouse or a friend or some, that I feel like that's crucial. We're fortunate now that we got YouTube to have our, our friends that we need and that support. But I don't think I could have done this without that. And, some of these people on YouTube were my friends, and, they have no idea I exist. But it's like I found that support system that I needed. And I know that that's crucial to, like I said, making any sort of lifestyle change is hard. That's the other thing. This was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, is to switch what I ate completely. And it's not about the food. It's about changing my entire world. It was no more, you're going to go to Sunday dinners at your family's house and eat whatever the heck they give you and eat 10 times what you should. There was no more going out for pizza with friends and going to the baby showers and eating all the cake and the ice cream and drinking at night. And it was gone. And that is the hardest part about my health journey. That was the hardest thing, is grieving that loss, but also grieving that I don't even know how to put that into words. It was like the old me had to die and I had to start a new person. I'm not the same person I was just 4 years ago when I started this diet. And I'm so glad, because I don't ever want to be that again. And I feel sorry for that person. And now I feel like I can help other people that are going through the exact same, struggle. And that's what I want to do now with my extra time that I have and my energy. I want to make sure that I impact people. And, I would love to see, like, at the urology clinic, that they hand you a sheet that says, here's all about the carnivore diet. Like, I would love that. That would be, that's like one of my goals, is to have it, where that's something that's talked about in that community. But we'll see.
Mm,
We'll see.
yeah. Um, it's also interesting you say, like, it feels like the old you had to die,
Mhm.
you know, because when I think about it, it's like it does, the before times does feel like a different person, like
Mhm.
thinking back, I feel like I don't really know that addict that was,
Yeah.
addicted to sugar, that was addicted to alcohol, that was
Mhm.
like just doing all the things, I
Right.
just I feel separated from that person now.
Yeah. And did you experience any sort of backlash from your family and friends when you decided to change, or did it were they supportive?
Not really. I think people just kind of, most people probably just went, "Oh, he's gone all weird. Let's just back away from him." But um, you know, at the start, because I was primarily doing it as a way of getting off alcohol,
Mm.
and no one, if you're trying to quit alcohol, no one gives you a hard time about that. Like,
Mhm.
only a really awful person that's not really a friend gives you a
Right.
hard time about trying to get off alcohol. And
Right.
so I think from that perspective, that probably made it a little bit easier for me. But so has your husband's kind of more on the keto side,
Mhm.
and you've made this dramatic change. Has anyone around you showed any level of interest in doing this?
Yes, they have.
Oh.
I get people, family members, that ask about it, and I'll say the same thing. Like, I I would love to talk to you. Let's talk. Any questions you have, ask me. And then they just kind of disappear. Or let's see, I had one cousin say, well, I'm really curious to see what she said your biomarkers are. Like I said, the number one thing people want to know, not they don't care that I fixed all these issues or lost 70 pounds. They want to know what my cholesterol level is. And I'm like, I don't know because I don't go to the doctor anymore, because I don't have to go to the doctor anymore. Like literally, I used to be in and out of a doctor's office, you know, it's like once a month I was in a doctor's office. You're not going to find me there anymore. So, the only reason I had to go to the doctor is because I had to have my two kids, and that was it. And of course, I'm like chomping at the bit. Let me get out of here. I don't want to be in here. Um, but yeah, people they want to know how I did it. What am I eating? And I'll tell them I am completely transparent. I'm not gatekeeping anything. And it's like I'll tell them and they just kind of back off. And I swear I think it's because I'm like, well, the alcohol is like the number one thing that has to go. That shuts people down. And I never realized, I was like, okay, people don't want to be told that they shouldn't be drinking alcohol. And I'm not saying you don't, you can't still live a healthy life and have alcohol, but for me, I'm like, that's not what works for me, so I don't do it. Um, but yeah, I am shocked at how many people still to this day will say things like, "Are you still eating like that?" And it's like, "Are you still eating like you are?" Like,
Well,
what
I
kind of
think
question is this?
I think the problem is what they do is they associate this with every other diet they've ever done.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
every other diet they've ever done is only ever temporary to achieve a goal, fit into that dress at the wedding they're
yes,
going to, or whatever the thing is. And
right,
so they assume, well, your thing is a diet, so there's obviously an
hmm,
end point.
yeah, yeah.
But your whole perspective changes, right?
It does, completely changes, and I'm learning that if someone wants help, they'll ask me, and I'm here to give it. And that's kind of where I'm leaving it. Is I'm not going to push this way on other people. I'm just simply going to share my story. I'm going to share the information that I've learned along the way. Um, yeah, that's all I can really do is just try and lead by example and not, I don't want to shame anybody or make them feel bad about what they're eating. Um, because I still go to birthday parties and still have family dinners. It's just, it looks a little different of what's on my plate than what they're serving. And I bring my own stuff. I bring my own food. And now
It's
people are used to it.
Yeah, and it ends up, I feel anyway, it ends up becoming quite an empowering feeling, like that you can go to these things and not feel tempted by the cake and the cookies
Oh,
and stuff.
yes, it is so good to know that after this, like, okay, for instance, like Thanksgiving, um, after everyone was done eating and I ate my food I brought from home, everybody's miserable and I'm just like, well, so what are we going to do next? And it's like nobody wanted to do anything. They just want to lay and I'm so sick. Why'd I eat that? And yeah, it's funny
And
because
it's at those moments you think that some people would put two and two together and go, how come you're the only one that's eating differently and you're the only one that's still got energy?
yeah,
Yeah.
you would think, but yeah,
Mm.
it's
So, Melanie, how can people reach out to you? You have a YouTube channel?
I do. I have a YouTube channel called Carnivore Queen. I'm also on Instagram. I'm at Carnivore Queen 1. And I am working on a website, like literally right now, so that people can learn more about me and sign up to get like a newsletter and things like that. Because I'm going to start having like the goal is to have a guide that someone can get to kind of kickstart their healing journey, and it's very geared towards, I would say, someone with interstitial cystitis, but it could be for anybody. So yeah, that's, that's in the works. But yeah, I have an email in the YouTube bio, and so if you want to reach out, you can. And I love to hear from people and talk about this stuff, and so yeah.
Awesome. I'll link to all those in the show notes. Melanie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Dave, thank you so much for reaching out to me and giving me this opportunity to talk, because this is what this is what makes the world a better place.